Hey guys, so as you know, I'm a really big fan of roguelikes. They're essentially games that when you die, you have to go right back to the beginning. I like it because it sort of encourages developing a skill at the game rather than just mindlessly grinding. And I've played a lot of roguelikes this year, some new releases, and I've also played again some older releases. And I just like to make a video where I do kind of an updated 2022 roguelike review sort of style video, where I can tell you about some of my top choices and some of my not so top choices. Let's start with Nuclear Throne. Nuclear Throne was one of these roguelikes that I started off playing at the beginning of the year. It's got a pretty good pixel art style. I mean, I'm not especially a big fan of pixel art style. Enter the Gungeon, I'm not a huge fan of, and action roguelikes in general, I'm not a huge fan of. But Nuclear Throne is very good at what it does. It's very specialized. Every playthrough kind of feels unique because of the upgrades that you're getting. And you can play as one of these irradiated creatures, and each irradiated creature has a totally different playstyle, which is very cool. Like when you're dealing with classes in roguelikes, you want every class to feel as different as possible, and they really do succeed with this. So, it is very good at what it is, but it's just not for me. I'm sure it's someone's cup of tea, though. Okay, Wazhack. We're delving straight into obscurity here. Whenever I played NetHack, I would always sort of be repulsed by how complicated the key bindings were, how many actions you could take with each item. I get that was part of the appeal of the sort of like 80s, 90s sensibility of video games back then, but I found Wazhack has the complexity almost of NetHack, but it's visually representative and more appealing, which I like. It's still not very visually appealing, but the depth that it goes into is worthwhile to take a hit on graphics, I'd say. I beat Wazhack like once, I think, with the warrior, and then I was like, I don't want to play this through with every class, but it was a really good experience when I was playing through. And when I beat the final boss, I was like, I don't even know how I did this. It was some fluke, because otherwise I would have been totally destroyed. But no, Wazhack, surprisingly good game, also pretty cheap. So what I would say is, if you like the concept of NetHack, but you want it to be like a little bit more accessible, this is the perfect sweet spot. Into the Breach is a really cool game. There's like some small amount of vertical progression where you carry your pilot, who pilots one of these big mechs, killing these kaiju-like creatures. If you lose, you get to send one of them back through time to start off in your next mission. I totally forgive that level of vertical progression. The game is really solid, really tight. I had a lot of fun playing it. It's very satisfying to like knock kaijus into each other or just throw them off the map. This was one of those games where like I beat it, I was satisfied with it, and then I uninstalled it. And that's kind of what I do with all roguelikes. Like I try to just beat it on like the difficulty that it wants me to beat it at, and then I'm done with it and I move on. And yeah, I do that every time. Like I keep thinking like, okay, now I'm done with roguelikes. I'm not gonna waste my time playing video games anymore. But no, I just keep coming back because roguelikes are just so fun. Crypt of the Necrodancer, I hear a lot of good things about. I don't know why it just didn't do it for me. Maybe like the pixel art style doesn't really do it for me, and I'm not really like a music guy, like I'm not gonna be playing a game just for the music, right? So I'm more focused on gameplay. Is the gameplay there? It's pretty good, but it's a little too simplistic for me. And part of what I like about roguelikes is stacking these items and combos on each other, and it just didn't really pay off for me in that sense. But I totally understand people like it, and I know that the music is good, but it's just not enough for me to carry a game. Vampire Survivors, you've probably heard of this one, very popular roguelike. It's actually revolutionized roguelikes, right? Because there's like a million of these copy games that have the exact same concept of Vampire Survivors. The concept is good, I will give it that. It's a very good concept. That's how you know it's a good concept when people are copying it. Essentially, you go around, you kill enemies, you gain these experience points, and then that gives you more and more area of effect damage. And then as that happens, the number of enemies increases and increases and increases until you're killing like thousands, tens of thousands of enemies per round, per run. Like, it's crazy how many actual like individual sprites you're destroying. And it makes the game kind of deceptive. Like, it looks like it's a small, simple pixel art style game, and it is, but it gets so hectic, it gets so crazy, like all these different sprites. And one thing I will say is it does get a little hard for you to keep track of what's going on, and you're just kind of like in the general vicinity, like around the 15-minute mark of when you're playing. You're just kind of like hoping that you're in the general vicinity of like not being killed. And then when you do get killed, it can kind of come out of nowhere. You're like, I don't even know what killed me. So those are some small problems. But the real thing that kills Vampire Survivors for me, the real reason that it doesn't survive my rating is because there's too much vertical progression. Like, vertical progression is when in between runs, you gain abilities that help you with future runs. And when vertical progression is really bad, it's to the point where, like, if you have all the upgrades, you can breeze through the game, and if you have no upgrades, it's impossible to win. And I just felt like that was the case with Vampire Survivors. I played the early itch.io versions, and those were fine, but I feel like in the final version, there's just too much of that. I know you can play without it, but I don't know. I don't feel comfortable when the developer doesn't really tell me how to play. He's just like, oh, you can do it easy mode or hard mode. No, I want a flat challenge, and then I want to beat it, and then I want to move on with my life. So that didn't satisfy me there. Speaking of vertical progression, Rogue Legacy 2, it's all about vertical progression. I just couldn't get past like the 3-hour mark because I was like, how much more grinding am I gonna have to do in order to stand a chance at beating the game? Like, look at this castle system, right? Like, each one of these upgrades, you have to grind and grind and grind for sometimes multiple runs. Multiple, like, 20-minute runs just to get, like, 1 point in these upgrades. I mean, if all of these upgrades were, like, horizontal progression, where you're just unlocking a different class that plays in a different way and they're all well-balanced, that would be one thing. But you're straight up getting, like, HP boosts and damage boosts, and it just makes me feel like, well, why am I wasting my time with this game, right? I understand that some people need the vertical progression, some people like the vertical progression, but for me, this just kills the game. I'm so tired of, like, hard games just being, like, this fallen fantasy setting. Like, everyone has to be Dark Souls now. Even, like, Rogue Legacy, they're like cutesy little teeny tiny characters, and then you're, like, facing, like, Gragnor, the fallen lord. Like, get over yourselves. Speaking of vertical progression, Downwell. It's a game where you go down a well. I think I played this game for like 5 minutes, and then I was like, I don't know why I'm playing this on my PC, because I should just be playing this on my phone, and if I'm playing it on my phone, then, you know, I don't really want to play it at all. Nothing personal, it didn't grab me. What can I say? There's a lot of good roguelikes out there, and I don't have time to waste. Okay, so you can't talk about roguelikes this year without talking about Inscryption. Inscryption totally changed the game. One of the best games maybe ever. Not a true roguelike. There's too much vertical progression. You have to play through multiple times and play through in different ways and do stuff outside of the actual core game experience. And then there's like different phases of the core game experience. Not a real roguelike. But very good game nonetheless. And if you're a fan of roguelikes, you'll probably like it. I spent a lot of time on it. It's a very well-crafted game. Beautiful storytelling. Obviously deserves the praise that it's getting. I just wish there was like a mode that I could switch on, which was just like, give me the gameplay experience. Like, I don't care about the story, just give me the goods. But nonetheless, great game. Dicey Dungeons. Dicey Dungeons was one of the games that I would support on itch.io back when it was like a Flash game. You know, I had spent like $5 buying the full version, supporting the full version, and then I felt like a real hipster because then everyone was playing this game 2 years later, and I was getting all the update versions for free, and I was like, this is sick. I'm glad that I invested in this. This was like a good investment of my like time and money. So you like roll dice, and you use those dice to activate abilities, and yeah, the opponent does the same. The art style, as you can see, is very stylized and beautiful, and all of the different classes have their own unique special ability, like a limit break ability that really is powerful and has like a noticeable effect, and also their own set of unique equipment cards that give them unique gameplay options. And there's 6 of these, and everyone feels unique. So, very good game. One of the best roguelikes. There is optional challenge modes that you can do, which I'm not a huge fan of. And from what I remember, the final boss was kind of a pushover, but other than that, very good game. Tainted Grail Conquest. Oh man, you know, I really wanted to like this game. I really did, but I just don't understand it. Like, I think I won. Like, I think I beat it, but then, like, the game just ends, and then I have to play through the same thing that I just beat again to get to the next part or something. I didn't really understand what was going on. The parts where I was playing, I think I was having fun, but I also think that there's, like, vertical progression and stuff. Like, I think the moment I realized there was as much vertical progression as there was, I was like, not worth my time. Like, I spent 4 or 5 hours on this first run. I do not want to invest like 60 hours of grinding in order to play a roguelike at the hardest difficulty. It should just let me experience a real challenge, you know? So it failed on that front. for sure. This one was pretty good. I found myself growing disinterested by the narrative, and I just wanted to play the game because that's what fires my dopamine. And the game is really stylized and really quite funny, and the gameplay is good as well. I played through the main 3 dungeons, and then there's this 4th dungeon, and I was kind of lost on what to do, and I just uninstalled it there. Spelunky 2, excellent game. Excellent game. I have never come close to beating it, but excellent game. I think I got to maybe like the last level, and I just couldn't win. Unforgiving, brutal game with a steep learning curve. Everything really like a roguelike should be. Streets of Rogue. It's one of the only options that you have if you want to do a multiplayer roguelike experience. It's pretty good. I think I would like to see a better multiplayer roguelike experience in the future. FTL, Faster Than Light. Another hard game. I keep dying on the final boss. It is a good game, lots of replayability, and I think I'll come back to this one. Okay, don't crucify me here, because I know Hades is one of the most popular roguelikes over the last couple of years, but I just found it okay. You know, I beat it. What really turned me off, obviously very innovative with the conversation systems adapting to what your character has done or just done. If you just die to like a certain enemy, then you know your friend might remark on how you died. That's cool, and that's inspired a lot of other games, and I respect that. Also, they have a very good justification for their death is not the end premise, because you know you're like an immortal god, you keep reviving. I can even forgive the vertical progression because you can beat the game like on your first try. What kills it for me is that I beat the game, and then I was even willing to put up with their ascension tiers, right? I was even willing to do their, what they call a heat meter, where every level of heat is a different tier of ascension where the game gets harder and you have to play it again. What I wanted to do though is just set the heat level to 20. Like I could beat the game on heat level 20, but it only lets you increment by 1 heat level at a time. So basically, if I want to get to level 20, I have to beat the game on heat level 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, it's too much. It's too much. I felt like it was trying to hold my hand or something and make me play the game longer than I really wanted to. It's kind of sad. I felt like it was trying to like hold my hand or something. Like it wanted me to spend more time playing the game so I could like get to know its characters better and progress through its story arcs and like 100% it. And I just wanted to like beat the game and move on. It's sad when something tries to hang around longer than it really should. Because sometimes it's time for someone to just exit your life, but it's still there and you're holding on to it. But you shouldn't hold on to it anymore. You know you shouldn't hold on to it anymore, but it is still there. And that's why I uninstalled Hades. Ring of Pain is one of the more recent roguelikes I played. I played it, I think, for like a day and a half, and then I got really tired of the gameplay gimmick. I like a lot about it. The graphics are good, and the equipment system is cool, and it did give me a lot of unique experiences, but I just couldn't figure out how to win, like how to be effective at all. Like I felt like I was just totally at the whim of the items I was getting, and that was a big turnoff for me. I kind of have a thing for roguelikes, which have really shitty graphics, or like very minimalistic graphics, but like very deep gameplay. And Circadian Dice, it checks those boxes, baby. Very, very minimal vertical progression, very skill-based, but also with enough luck to keep things fresh. The only thing it has going against it is the lack of a clear, like, this is the thing that you need to beat in order to stop playing. Because I beat the whole game, and then it's like, okay, you unlock a hard mode and a campaign mode, and it's like, well, you know, what am I supposed to do? I need direction. Because I'm playing the game to have direction. That's part of the reason I play the roguelike. It's to do the same thing over and over again and get better at it each time. Like I'm crafting a skill, like a real skill. I want to feel like I learned something. I learned something, and then I applied it, and I got a win. That's so absent in my life. Okay, this is probably going to come out of nowhere. Poker Quest, this roguelike you've probably never heard of, is my top roguelike that I've been playing so far. It's like Dicey Dungeons in the sense that you get these random cards or dice or whatever, and you use these cards to activate your abilities. So basically, like if you get 3 hearts, you can use that to activate your card, which needs 3 flushes, and you deal like 30 damage or something. Very cool concept, very fun. Very hard as well, very challenging. 2 knocks against it, small knocks, but the game can drag on a little long. Like if you want to play through a full run, it's like 4 hours, and it's not really something you can beat in one sitting, which I'm not a huge fan of. And then number 2 is the battles can drag on a little long, especially if you have no way of like doing a finishing blow. The first boss of every run is always the same guy. It's like this toad creature with like high defense. If he just keeps blocking over and over again, you're gonna be like sitting there a while. Like you can spend like 15 minutes on that one fight just like waiting for his shield to go down so you can get a hit in, and at that point it does kind of become tedious. I'd say the rest of the game is like surprisingly good, and it's something I was not expecting to sink as much time into as I did, but I did, so there you go. And I'm gonna end this video on a bit of a curveball. I've been getting into Gamebooks recently, and the Gamebook experience, if you're playing it properly, is very similar to the roguelike experience. When you die, you're supposed to go all the way back to the beginning, lose all your equipment, all your life, and just reroll. What I found interesting was I found this thing called Grail Quest. It's a roguelike game book. But when you die, the enemies that you killed in your previous life stay dead. So it's kind of like helping you out each time you die. Very cool idea. I don't know why I'm getting into game books. Like, I'm literally like reading stuff that was made because they didn't have computers good enough to make the game happen. So you just had to like write in a book and roll some dice yourself. But I enjoy the sensibilities, like the game design sensibilities of like the 80s and 90s for some reason, a lot more than actually some modern games. And the stories they tell just feel more intricate. Another really appealing thing about game books is you just can print them off for free like now, because all these books are like 30 years old. There's PDFs of them everywhere. You just look up the whatever game book you're interested in, PDF. Here I have a Grail Quest. Here's something by the same author, Sagas of the Demon Spawn, which has like a really interesting like combat system, and it's all stuff you just, if you have a printer, you print it off, get some dice, get a pencil, and you have like a really unique experience. It's very fun, and I would recommend, you know, if you played game books like Choose Your Adventures or Fighting Fantasy when you were a kid and you want to relive that, I found it very nostalgic. I found it very fun, and I think you will too. Heart of Ice. This is a really good game book, and there's actually a PDF version of it if you don't have a printer. You can just find this PDF version, and you can get like a pencil and paper, and it works. Like you can just click these buttons, like, oh, if you want to take this guy as your companion, turn to 23, and then it just skips you to 23. If you want to go to this inn, you go to 177, and then you just keep track of what happens to you. And you just play it honestly. You know, you die, okay, go back to the beginning, or you can even be like, okay, I'm gonna play this. Okay, so those are all of the roguelikes I've played over the last year and a bit. Let me know if you try out any of those roguelikes yourself. I am currently installing Project Zomboid, so we'll see how that goes for me. I hear it's a very good game. Obviously, I couldn't talk about every roguelike here. There's like NetHack and Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead and Dwarf Fortress Adventure Mode that are just games that I have not been actively playing over the last year, but are still very foundational and important roguelikes. Binding of Isaac, that's another one. Enter the Gungeon, Slay the Spire. Those are just games that I personally haven't been playing, but still hold up and are still very good games. Let me know if you try out any of the games I suggested, and yeah, you know, I'm just trying to do more things I enjoy. It's not healthy to almost be forcing yourself to, you know, be creative or be productive. Or sometimes it's good just to sit back and relax and play some video games, and that's definitely what I'm trying to do more of these days.
He's regular, he's regular.